Your feelings don't matter. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to manage your emotions. Now, I have a 2-step framework for you, as well as 4 tips on how you can successfully do that. Now, the premise of this video may get you a little upset. It may stir up some emotions within you, but that's kind of the point, right? I believe the only way that you can be successful in this life is if you realize and you have a mental model that allows you to think that your emotions and your feelings don't really matter. No matter what the people in your life say, no matter who is around you, they don't care. Their life is just as complex as yours, and they don't give a shit what you're feeling like, ultimately. No one cares, and neither should you. Now, I say all that abrasively to kind of capture your attention and to get my point across. All that being said, our emotions are something that we feel every single day, so there's no way that we can just kind of throw them away and act cold-hearted. That won't get us anywhere else in life either. So we have to learn how to manage them and how to use them in our favor. People often push this idea that you should be as emotional as possible, especially as a man. You should be in touch with your feelings, and you should strive to be in a constant state of feeling good or do what's best for you. Now, I completely disagree with that, especially as a man. You need to be able to feel your feelings and not act on them. I believe that if you always act in accordance to your feelings and you always want to make yourself feel good, you'll only be led down a path of pure emotional instability and pure hedonism, to be honest with you. I think you'll start losing control of your life if you always strive to be in a state of feeling good, and you'll eventually end up on drugs, gambling, drinking alcohol, or doing things to make you feel good rather than pushing towards a life of success. The frame that I like to put myself in when talking about emotionality and feeling your emotions is very, very simple. I believe that you should feel the hell out of your emotions. Recognize that you're feeling them, but still do everything in your power to put your best foot forward and always be progressing towards your goals. Now, it's easier said than done, obviously, but that's the kind of frame that I like to put myself in. I believe the quicker that you can adapt a frame like this, where you can feel your emotions, you can recognize that they're there, and you can still act in accordance to your goals, is the best place to be, and it will get you towards your goals a lot faster than the reverse way around. Imagine a society where everyone's running around doing things that are only good for them and always trying to be in the best feel-good state as possible. It would be absolutely chaotic if that were the case. So clearly, that's not the way we should be. I recently picked up a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I'm sure you've heard of it if you're in the self-development space. It's a very common book that people push across, and I never really believed in the idea of stoicism before I started reading this book. It completely changed the way that I think about things. It talks about emotionality, how you should be, how to control yourself, and really just all the general principles that Stoicism embodies. Now, a direct quote that I got out of that book, I think it's out of the 4th chapter in there, but it says, "Why see misfortune in the event rather than good fortune in your ability to bear it?" Everyone goes through bad shit on a pretty much a daily basis. Think about all the problems that you've gone through today alone. So what he's saying here is that the bad event or the unfortunate stuff that happens to you is not the unique thing. The ability to persevere is. Not everyone has the ability to persevere through bad shit, so that's what we need to be focusing on doing, rather than focusing on all the bad stuff that happens to you. Now, I've come up with a 2-step framework that you can use to better control your emotionality starting today. Now, the first piece of this is to constantly be self-analyzing. If you are not self-analyzing everything that you are doing on a daily basis, you are falling behind the ball daily. Instead of just feeling things and going about your day and acting irrationally on every single emotion that you come across, take a second when you feel something, when you get angry, when you get sad, when you start feeling emotions, and recognize why you're feeling those emotions. That's the first piece in learning to control your emotions. Think about what happened in that situation that made you upset or made you sad. Was it the person? Was it something that they did? Was it an unspoken principle that you guys have in your friendship or relationship that they've broken? What was it about that situation that made you upset? 9 times out of 10, lashing out or getting into an argument with someone never ends well for either party, right? It's usually just an ego fight. You guys start clashing egos and start insulting each other, and you never really get to the bottom of things. If you were to take a second and self-analyze exactly what is going on in that situation and approach it from a different angle, a more calm angle, you can better control your emotions to handle that situation and come to a better resolution with that person and avoid damaging your relationship with that person permanently. Now, the second piece of the 2-step framework is to adapt your findings and your learnings in real time. Now, this takes a ton of practice, so don't expect to be an expert as soon as you start trying, but you need to think of different ways to handle situations in real time. If you've never considered doing something like this, then chances are you just act on your emotions as soon as they come up and you start fights with people, or you immediately get defensive on your point, or you ultimately act with emotional instability, which is not what we want here. Now, the part that makes this so tricky is that sometimes when we're in situations that make us extremely mad or extremely frustrated or sad or whatever it is, it's hard to really think straight. So this is going to take a lot of brain power, a lot of work, and a lot of practice to put into play. Something that I try to do whenever I'm in a situation like that is I like to think of the emotion as an independent entity in my head, right? So it's like I'm looking at my emotions from a third person point of view, and I'm looking at the things that are going on rather than just acting on my emotion. That way I can pick apart exactly what's going on in that emotion, why it's happening, and how I can best handle the situation to put myself in the best position possible. Now, obviously, I'm no master at this. No one really is, and it's hard to get to a point where you are emotionally stable all the time, but it's important to at least try so you get better at it over time. No one likes to be around people who are emotionally unstable or just lash out at random people or act in their emotions all the time. So the only thing that you can do to try to get better is to practice it. Now, I have 4 quick tips here that I've picked up over the past year or so of trying to do this that I'll share with you here to try to master your emotional stability. So the first thing I have for you is to realize that the fight usually isn't even worth it. Or how many times have you acted on your emotions or lashed out at a friend only to realize 10-20 minutes later, like, what the hell even was that? Why did I do that? Why are we fighting? We're in this awkward zone now where we're not really talking or it's not really friendly, and I don't even know what we were mad about. There's no reason to be that way. Now, my frame for disagreements goes as follows. Whenever I'm about to have a disagreement with someone, I like to think if this disagreement will matter tomorrow. Right? In a full 24 hours, will this thing even matter? How small or how big is it? If it will matter in 24 hours, will it matter in a week? If it will matter in a week, will it matter in a month or a year? I brought in my timeline out, and chances are it won't even matter in the next 12 hours. So what's the point of fighting about it now with this person? That usually clears up a lot of the emotion around the topic, and I realize that the disagreement is so stupid that there's no point in even having it. So I recommend you do the same. The second thing that I have for you is that you are only hindering your progression by not adapting a mental model that allows you to control your emotions, right? The only person that you're hurting is you. Like I said earlier, no one wants to be around someone who can't control themselves, who lashes out, who's angry all the time, who acts on their emotions, who acts like a little kid, honestly. So by not being able to control your emotions, you're only pushing people away and putting yourself in a worse off spot. Also, it's not good for any business practices. No one ever got to the top of an industry by acting on their emotions, right? You don't see the CEOs of huge companies lashing out at people or being super emotional on social media, blowing up and stuff. Sometimes you do, but usually it comes with a ton of bad PR. So take a page out of their book, be emotionally centered, and realize that if you want to get where you want to go in life, you have to have some level of emotional stability within you. When you come to a point where you can finally control your emotions to some degree, view it from a third-party point of view like I told you about earlier, it's almost like a superpower. Most people aren't able to control their emotions, so by adapting a frame that allows you to, you're already 10 steps ahead of the competition. The third thing I wanted to touch on was you often do more harm than good, whether you win the argument or not. Usually when you're arguing with someone, especially if it's a friend, a partner, a coworker, a boss, something like that where they're close to you and you're going to see them a lot, it often builds up resentment if you win the argument. It may feel good to win the argument in the moment, but over time, if you keep winning arguments by lashing out on people and always being right and having to prove your point and stuff it down their throat, you're only going to build up resentment within that person towards you. No one likes losing, especially when the way that you're winning is that you're ramming emotions down their throat. It's disrespectful, and like I said, it builds up a ton of resentment in that person. The more of these fights you win in the short term, the quicker you'll lose in the long term, and I firmly stand by that. Instead of butting heads with people and always having to be right, come to a resolution that benefits both parties instead of clashing heads, insulting each other, and building up resentment. The fourth and final thing I have for you is that you're going to waste a ton of unnecessary brain power that could be used in a more productive way. Right? Usually when you have these arguments, you start thinking about it all day, maybe even over a couple of days if it's a really bad argument, and you're just constantly thinking about that thing, and that energy could be better used towards your projects, towards your work, towards your personal things that you're working on. Whatever you're working on, I promise it's better to use your brain power towards that rather than thinking about an argument that happened a couple days ago. Usually it puts you in a bad mood for the entire day or the entire week if it's that bad of an argument, and you're just unpleasant to be around ultimately, right? No one wants that. No one wants to be around you, and I don't want that for you. Usually it's just an ego thing at the end of the day. So by viewing your emotions from a third person point of view and acting accordingly into your goals and finding a resolution that works out for both parties is always the best way to go. So put it into action now. For the next 90 days, I want you to self-analyze everything that happens to you and start applying them to situations in real time. Separate your emotions from your actions and act in accordance to your goals. I promise your life will never be the same. So that's pretty much all I had for you today. I wrote a full article on this. I will put it as the first link in the description. But if you like that, if you want to see more of that, go ahead, follow me across all socials at Damien Alvarez, and I will talk to you guys next week.